Hello and welcome to your Urban Connection. Now remember, this is the channel that is often imitated, but is never, ever duplicated. And tonight, I want to inform you and educate you about one topic and one topic alone. And that topic is felonies, convicted felons running for elective office in the United States. Now, this was predicated and is predicated on the current candidate for U.S. president in 2024, who was convicted of 34 counts or 34 felonies by a jury of his peers a little more than a week ago. Now, basically, what he's asking for is he's asking the American voters to do something they've never, ever done before, and that is to elect a convicted felon to political office, and in his case, the highest political office in the United States, President of the United States. Now, basically, it's very unfortunate, but a lot of his Republican senators and House members, and many of these are attorneys who know right from wrong and who know the rules of law in this country. But they have come out suggesting that in spite of his conviction of 34 felonies, that he should be elected to serve as president of the United States in November of 2024. Now, basically, what he's done, or what they have done, is they have cracked, I won't say opened yet, but they have cracked the door to something that is totally unprecedented in United States history. Only once before has a convicted felon in the United States that I know of run for re-election to the United States Senate or any other elective office in the United States, and that was the former Senator Ted Stevens of Alaska. In 2008, Ted Stevens was convicted of, I believe, on 8 charges, all felonies, in the state of Alaska. After being charged and found guilty, Senator Stevens elected to run for re-election in spite of those convictions, only to be defeated. So therefore, this is something that has never happened before in US politics. But as you might expect, once that door was just cracked, like I said, it's not open yet, but once it was cracked, you knew that it would only be a matter of time before someone else would follow the steps of a convicted felon by the name of Donald Trump and put their hat in the ring after having been convicted of felonies in the state of Kansas. And that happens to be a gentleman by the name of Michael Ogle, who on Monday signed his name to appear on the ballot, filed the paperwork in Topeka, Kansas, to run for Kansas House of Representatives. Now, this gentleman pleaded guilty to having been convicted and pleaded guilty to the charges involving domestic violence, having a weapon and threatening his ex-wife, if I'm not mistaken, running around the house waving a gun, threatening violence. He also, I believe, assaulted an ex-girlfriend, but there were several charges, and 3 of them resulted in him being convicted of 3 felonies. Yeah, I'm not so sure that's the only one, but as of right now, that's the only one other than Donald J. Trump that I know of that have signed and filed paperwork to run as convicted felons in the upcoming 2024 election. Now, I want to talk about this thing about convicted felons. And I want to talk about it in particular as it pertains to Donald Trump. You see, I've seen several, but let me just go back. I'm sorry, I want to say one thing. One of the things Mr. Ogle said when he was interviewed by one of the local television stations there in Topeka was that because Kansas is a red state, most Republicans were going to vote for a convicted felon anyhow for president, so they might as well vote for 2. Okay. Now, here's the thing I want to get back to. Many of you people that share the view, and those are mostly Republicans, share the view that Donald Trump, in spite of having been convicted, and in spite of the fact that he was convicted by a jury of 12 peers, who, after having seen and heard all of the evidence in the case that was filed appropriately by Manhattan District Attorney Alvin Bragg, presented before a judge, and a very good and very fair judge, in my opinion. Matter of fact, Judge Machant went overboard. He went a lot further than I would have to make sure that Mr. Trump got a fair trial. But there are those of you out there who drink the Kool-Aid that is being poured by Mr. Trump and other Republicans, that this verdict and the trial was unfair. It was rigged. And that's the same old story you hear every time that Mr. Trump is involved in some criminal act. It's rigged. He didn't do anything. He didn't do anything wrong. He never does. But I want you people to understand something. Those of you that want to throw your hat in the ring and say, look, I support Mr. Trump's re-election, some would call it, election or whatever, to the United States president, you better be very, very careful, because I don't even think you realize what you're asking for. So I want to tell you what you're going to get if you have your way. I want you people to familiarize yourself with this one number, 237. And you know what that stands for? Now, many of you don't know this. 237 is the number of pardons and the clemencies that were awarded to convicted felons by Donald Trump when he was a president. That's right, 237. All of those people had to have been charged as criminals, or they would not have a reason to be pardoned. So when you're asking for Donald Trump to be elected to serve in 2024 as the president of the United States, you're asking for all those criminals who were charged in court in fair trials and sentenced to prison for their criminal acts, you're basically asking for all those people to be a part of, and many of them will, many of them won't, a future Donald Trump presidency in one way or another. Now, some of those people will be involved with Mr. Trump as his advisors, despite having been convicted of felony acts. Some of those people will probably be in his cabinet. Now, let me just explain something to you people. I'm going to name a few of these people, and I'm sure that you're going to recognize these names. But out of the 237, and I'm not going to go through all of them, but there are some familiar names. And these are people that were deeply involved with Mr. Trump during his first term. Names like Steve Bannon. Names like Paul Manafort. Names like Roger Stone. Names like Alice Johnson. Now, that name might not be quite as familiar to some of them, but Alice Johnson was a Black female that was involved in drug trafficking, a convicted drug felon who was pardoned by Donald Trump. And there are, like I said, there was a total of 237. Paul Papadopoulos, he was one that was convicted and pardoned. But I just want you people to understand, be sure you know what you're asking for. And be sure you know what you're going to get if Donald Trump is elected in 2024 to be the president again. All of those people that he has pardoned will have access to President Trump once again if he becomes president. Now, on top of that, the president, in addition to having pardoned 237 in his prior term, has already told you that basically on day one, he will pardon many, if not all, of the over 800 or 900 people that are in prison right now as a result of the January the 6th insurrection. Because he regards those as very fine people who were wrongly charged and wrongly convicted. So he would give them a pardon. Now, what do you think that is going to do to make them have any remorse, which today, as of today, not a single one of them has shown any remorse, has offered any apology to the American citizens for the harm, the destruction, and the criminality that they caused the United States on January 6th. Not a single one of them that I know of. Now, a lot of these congressmen and these senators that are coming out showing their loyalty and licking the boots of Donald Trump are attorneys who should be disbarred tomorrow. They're not patriots. They don't stand for law and order unless the lawbreakers are Black or brown and Democrat. As long as they're white and they're Republican, to hell with the oath that they took as an attorney and the oath that they took as a politician to stand for law and order in the United States. They would rather lick the boots of a convicted criminal and a convicted felon than stand for law and order. to stand for the safety and protection of the constituents in their particular districts in the United States. They have shown by their actions and their words that they don't give a, you know what, well, I don't want to say it here, this is a family show, but they don't have a care about standing for law and order when it comes to one of their peers. They don't give a doggone about spending 1 hour of their time in Congress being paid by the American taxpayers, and they don't give a doggone about your status as an American citizen, as an American taxpayer, and as far as you doing what you were paid to do, which is to stand up, speak up for the American public. And yet, every day, you shirk your responsibilities and your duties, only to lick the boots of one Donald Trump. You have not shown one iota of trying to find, propose policies and laws that will benefit the American public. Not one. You don't stand for anything today except to lick the boots of someone who's not even elected, but he's a Republican. And he's got you dangling on a string. You're his little puppets. And you will turn your back on anybody that gets in your way of licking his boots. And all the while, you're more than willing to throw all of your constituents under the bus, unless you're millionaires and billionaires. Those who don't give a damn about the middle class, the working class, the non-whites, they don't give a damn. They only want one thing from Donald J. Trump and you Republicans in the Senate and the House. They want their tax cuts at the expense of all the rest of the Americans who pay taxes, only to have those taxes shift right from your pockets into the pockets of somebody who does not even pay taxes, and someone whose salary and earnings are at least 100 times that of the average working class member. That's what you stand for. That's what you want. And that's what Donald Trump wants. He's already promised that he will raise taxes if he gets back in office, but not for the middle class, not for the working class, but for the rich, millionaires, and billionaires. And he's setting up his fellow convicted felons to back him up and support him in his effort to do just that. So, all I can do is inform you. What you do with the information that I give you is up to you. But I only have 2 words for you. Take heed. I'm James Barfield. See you next time.